This is News 12 Law Call.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for staying up and watching another Zoom edition of News 12 Law Call. Pleased to welcome back into the program the founder of the Hawk Law Group, Vic Hawk, as well as his son, Chase. And gentlemen, how are both of you tonight?
We're doing great.
Doing great now.
Super. Both of you handle personal injuries most every day as members of your practice. And people often wondered when they get hurt, what's sort of the next step? And during the course of the program, we'll try to guide everyone through that situation. But the calendar, we're in, it's the last Sunday in October as this program airs. And of course, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Chase, as many of our viewers have been following, you've been alongside your wife as she's battled breast cancer awareness. And I know you want to share some insight about that.
Sure. Yep. My wife was diagnosed about a month after we got married. She was 30 years old, no health problems. She was very healthy. She ate good, but that didn't stop breast cancer from coming into her life. And as a part of my mission and her mission now to help husband and wives, moms and dads to be aware of the need to do your self-breast exams every month. We call it Feel It on the First. You feel the boobs on the first for any lumps. And I always encourage the men out there to fight for their wives, their daughters, their mothers, and their grandmothers, and go ahead and pay to have genetic testing done. If you have a BRCA1 or a BRCA2 gene or the Li-Fermini gene in that genetic test, you are almost, if BRCA1 and BRCA2 is 80% chance of developing breast cancer by 40. If you have Li-Fermini, the Li-Fermini gene, you have a 100% chance of developing cancer in your lifetime. And one of the ways in which you can really change the outcome is to find it early. That can change the entire prognosis and the direction that your treatment goes. And so I always encourage women and men to do what they can before the doctors actually have to take over. So I want to make everybody aware, and also want to bring attention to something my wife is doing. She was going through treatment and saw a lot of women there in the treatment center by themselves and looking down and upset. And since she was 15 years old, she developed early, so she's been called the Booby Queen. Well, when she got breast cancer, they had to do surgery on her boobs, but she says it can't stop her from being the Booby Queen. So she started making these. These are crowns that she made out of her bras. And she wasn't going to let cancer take away her lust for life, her happiness, her joy. And this thing helps to remind her to be silly and have fun. If there are women in your life out there that are going through breast cancer treatment and going through chemotherapy treatment, get them one of these and see if it doesn't sort of change their outlook, make them smile, make them laugh. It's difficult to go through this thing, this treatment, and go through breast cancer without attitude, but this helps. So there's a website, it's called boobycrowns.com. You can get one of these, and whenever you purchase one, we donate one to a person going through breast cancer that doesn't have maybe the money or the support to buy it for themselves. You can also follow her on Booby Queen Chronicles and on Facebook, and sort of follow some of our shenanigans. We teach you how to do self-breast exams, how men can do self-breast exam on themselves, because 3% of men develop breast cancer. So
you're right. There's a gentleman who has had breast cancer, and I remember he was doing basketball tournaments to raise money and raise awareness. So you're absolutely right. I know that both of you gentlemen know Kay Jackson, right? The attorney in town. So personal connection, Kay's right hand, Tanya, is good friends with my bonus child and his wife. Well, his wife's mom has breast cancer, and she ordered one of the beautiful crowns and sent it on to Atlanta. And so she's really appreciated it. So it touches a lot of people.
That's great. She got one, and somebody hopefully got a big kick out of it.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're going to put up some information or have shared some information. Maybe we'll try it towards the end of the program to mention it once again. And thank you for what you're doing. And I know you're proud, Vic. So taking something and helping others, which is what your law group is all about as well.
That's right.
Yeah. And as we mentioned at the top, the program is called I'm Injured, Now What? Before we even get into the email question, you guys got ahead of the curve, I remember, maybe a couple of years ago, using cell phones and smartphones in terms of having an answer, a solution for someone that's maybe just got rear-ended. Tell us about that, Vic.
Yes, we developed an app that we attached a unusual name to so that you could find it easily on the web. It's called the Hawkeye app, and you can download it to your phone, and it gives you instructions as to what specifically you should do following an accident, whether it be a motor vehicle accident or any other accident that results in an injury. And tonight we're going to go into different types of cases to explain what you should do in relation to the specific type of case that caused your injury.
And Vic, a real quick question to open with James. It's about statute of limitations. We know they're different in Georgia and South Carolina in general, but are they different for different kinds of injuries?
Yes, there are different statute of limitations for different kinds of injuries. Y'all, this is a very, very murky, quicksandish kind of area of the law. As a general rule in Georgia, you have 2 years to file a claim for a personal injury, 1 year to file a defamation claim, 6 years to file a claim involving contracts. But then with regard to contracts, the courts or the legislatures have now allowed different large corporations and insurance companies to write their own statute of limitations in there. So what you may think you have a 6-year statute under your insurance contract, in reality, you may only have 6 months to file a certain notice that needs to be filed. So whenever you have a claim, it's very important that you don't guess as to what the statute of limitations is and contact a trial lawyer right away. The first thing that we look at when a case comes in is the statute of limitations.
Okay, we're going to take our first break, and then we're going to bring our viewers into the hospital with a family wondering what to do after a bad wreck and they get into the hospital. So please stick around. I'm Injured, Now What? On News 12 Law Call. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
Welcome back to News 12 Law Call with award-winning broadcaster Neil Gordon. And from the Hawk Law Group, attorney Vic Hawk, with more than 30 years experience and millions of dollars awarded to his clients. Attorney Reed Sanders, born and raised in Thompson and known for his strong courtroom skills. With criminal law, former police officer, now lawyer Sean Merzlach. And with South Carolina injury law, trial attorney Chase Hawk. Plus guest attorneys from across the CSRA. Your rights, your calls, live. News 12 Law Call.
Well, thanks so much for rejoining us here on News 12 Law Call. Our topic, I'm injured, now what do we do? Alongside attorneys Chase Hawk and his father, Vic, the founder of the Hawk Law Group. I'm Neil Gordon, and in the first segment, we talked about the statute of limitations being a little different based upon the severity of accidents and such in the state of Georgia. And Chase, you are licensed in South Carolina, and what are you finding there in the Palmetto State?
Sure. Yeah, the rules, as Dad says, there's always a general rule. And the general rule for personal injury claims is that it has to be brought within 3 years. Now, there are a variety of circumstances in which those claims might have to be brought earlier, or they can be brought much later. For instance, in the case of a child being injured, the child would actually have until a year after they turn 18 in order to bring the claim. Or, for instance, if you have a type of injury that's related to a medical malpractice and you didn't find out that anything had gone wrong in the surgery until a year after the surgery was actually performed, when does the date for the statute of limitations start running? In those circumstances, it's 6 years from the date of the actual injury. And you have situations too where if the surgeon leaves something inside of you, that statute of limitation for medical malpractice is 2 years. So the answer is yes, it can be very different based on what type of injury you have. So you have to really do an analysis that's fact specific.
Okay, and Chase, we'll get your expertise on another question that we mentioned before we went to break from Teresa. Teresa's sister and her son got into a wreck very recently. They went to the hospital and he has pinched nerves. She is pregnant and they are worried about complications. What do you think the first thing they need to do?
Well, number one, you need to take care of your health and the health of the mother and the child. That needs to be absolutely put first. This is a perfect situation in which an attorney is going to really, really benefit you because not only does your sister and the person she was with, your son, have rights that need to be asserted as far as their personal injury claims, the child may have rights. The mother, in the case of South Carolina, the mother is going to have a limited amount of time in which to bring, in Georgia, to bring the claim for any sort of medical bills associated with the treatment of any sort of complications. But if, for instance, the child is born with some sort of disability as a result of the accident, that child is going to have a claim up until a year after they turn 18, and or they have a guardian appointed to actually pursue the claim for them, because these injuries up to the infant, to the fetus, may not manifest itself, and a doctor may not be able to say, yes, this was because of the accident until years later. And so those are one of those situations where an attorney is going to really benefit you in being able to examine when the proper statute of limitations is for each individual claim. And in the meantime, you guys can worry about taking care of yourselves, taking care of your child, the unborn child, and your son. And that's really what needs to happen in that situation.
And
Okay.
I want to add something here, Neil, to Chase's answer and discuss a different aspect of it. Many times when people go to the hospital, they think that when they go to the hospital that the at-fault party is going to automatically pay. That does not occur. As a general rule, what occurs is you're shackled with those medical bills, and you should make sure that you give notice to your own car insurance carrier so that any MedPay provisions under that policy are paid. Give notice so that you can reach your uninsured motorist coverage at a later date. And you should always, if you have group medical insurance, give that information to the medical provider. It's unusual, and I don't want to get too complicated, but a lot of medical providers will not file on your group insurance or any other insurance if you're involved in an accident. So you really need to have a lawyer involved to make sure that burden is taken off of you while you take care of your own health.
Okay, great information. Vic, wanted to tap into your knowledge again to help May out. May's son was killed by a drunk driver and told that there were 3 cars insured, I guess, in the family, but only 1 car was involved. And May heard that an attorney may be able to look through and collect on all 3 of the policies. Is that we've discussed, is that stacking? And is
Stacking,
that,
yes,
is
stacking.
that true?
Well, stacking would only apply in a circumstance like that if there were multiple defendants and each of the defendants had their own insurance. You have a type of stacking there. In other words, if one defendant had 50,000, another had 100,000, another had 75,000, you could assert a claim against all three and try to collect all the available money on those policies for the wrongful death. In addition to that, in the circumstance that May has brought up, as we always tell you, have uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured motorist coverage with some companies you can stack. So say, for example, in May's circumstance, it was only $100,000 in available insurance, but she had insurance with State Farm, which had $250,000 limits on 3 cars. You can stack the uninsured motorist coverage that's available there so that she would actually have, instead of $100,000 in available coverage for the death, you would actually have $850,000. And we search out that insurance all the time. And as part of our investigation, we also search out potential umbrella coverage, which is a different type of policy, which can be stacked for one individual defendant. We have a case right now pending where we thought initially there was only $500,000 in coverage, and then we identified an umbrella policy that had another $1 million. Now, in South Carolina, it may be a little different. Chase?
Now, you can stack, not the liability policies typically. The only ones you can really stack are the UM policies. Those are the ones that you have on your vehicles at home. But it's going to be limited to the amount of UM coverage you have on the vehicle involved in the accident. For instance, if you have 3 cars and one of them has $100,000 in UM coverage, and you have 250 and 250 on the other 2 cars, you can only stack up to 100,000 because the one involved in the accident had 100,000. So there's some very specific rules that you have to sort of pay attention to if you're trying to stack. And just like in South Carolina or in Georgia, in South Carolina, most of the time you can't stack liability coverage. A situation where you could do that would be something like a mother giving a child, a younger adult in the house, keys to the car, and she knows that person has a drinking problem, and they're going out to have, to party that night, and the person knows it. In those types of situations, you can hold the mother responsible and the driver themselves. So those would be one of the unique circumstances where you can hold, you can access more than one policy on the liability side.
Super. Well, on the other side of the break, we're going to give you the telephone number and contact information of the Hawk Law Group. If anything is resonating with you or you've been hurt, and you can get in touch with them. And then we'll take more email questions as we continue with our program, I'm Injured, Now What? Well, thanks so much for tuning in to our program. It's sponsored by the Hawk Law Group, and they're very willing and able to sit down with you in person under very safe, sterile conditions, or if you prefer, like we're doing tonight, have a Zoom call with you. You can also chat on the telephone, the number up on the screen. All 4s, just dial a 706 area code. There are 4 offices to serve you across the CSRA. Our founder, Vic Hawk, is with us, and his son, Chase. They both handle personal injuries, and Chase handles South Carolina, and Vic handles Georgia. And I'm just wondering, have you ever sat across from someone who wasn't quite sure they were going to hire you, and they look at you and they say, why should I hire the Hawk Law Group?
I have that, especially with clients who walk in the office and first thing they say is, I'm really not a suing person. I don't like to file a lawsuit. I don't want to be involved in court or litigation, but the insurance company is just being very mean to me. And my first instinct is to say under my breath, well, I look forward to calling that adjuster and thanking them for being so stupid. The thing that I think people ride their decision or place their decision-making on is this. Am I talking to a real lawyer? Am I talking to a lawyer that tries cases? You don't want a lawyer that's afraid to go to court or that has never been to court, doesn't have the resources to go to court, because all the insurance companies know them. We, at our local trial lawyers group, recently we had a former civil defense lawyer contact us, come and speak to us, and he told us the first two factors that they consider in any case with regard to settling is, number one, where it is, where it's going to be tried, and number two, who is the lawyer. If you're a settling lawyer, all you're doing is screening for big cases, which you see on TV all the time. They're not worried about it. They're going to wholesale the case. We can take care of all the legal side so that you don't make any mistakes that hurt your family. We advance the cost of medical records, advance the cost of medical bills, advance the cost for investigation, advance the cost of filing a lawsuit, advance costs related to experts. We take all that burden away from you. And many times cases that we get on day one offer an X amount of money. When we finish, they get 10, 15 times that amount. Chase?
Yeah, and you're going to have to work with this person over the course of the next year. So, you got to actually, rely on your gut just a little bit as well. You have to, excuse me, I just knocked the table over. You have to see if you connect with that person, okay? And at the end of the day, all lawyers are people that have been trained to do something. And you got to ask yourself, is this a smart person? Is this a good person? Because you really, in this world, you cannot do any better than a smart person trying really hard to do good. And if you feel like that's what you got sitting across from you when you're interviewing someone to represent you, then I think you need to listen to that instinct. Of course, you have to have the resources and the know-how, but you also have to have that element as well.
Well, and I can personally say, just living here almost 30 years, you always see the Hawk Law Group contributing to the local community. Very important part of the community. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for staying up with us.